Welcome one, welcome all, welcome to another exciting episode of Tales of Citizens right here on the Sound Strategy Network. I am Bridger. I'll be your host for this Star Citizen podcast, and we've got a great show for you today. Glad you got a hold of the program, however you may have found it. Tell it to two or four or eight or some multiple of two friends, won't you? Again, I am Bridger, and I would like to start by quickly announcing that the show is going to go on hiatus. And I know people are going to be upset, but don't worry, we'll be back. But unfortunately, I do have to move to a brand new house. We're building a brand new studio in our basement, and it's going to be awesome. So I look forward to sharing that with you when we get back, guys. But for the time being, the whole packing up of computer software is going to make it very difficult to do the show. So this will be the last show for about a month or so, and then in August, we're going to resume as soon as possible. So check the calendars on the YouTubes. Check back on the Sundays in August, and you'll see we'll be back there. Let me introduce my two co-hosts for this show here. Of course, on the left screen, we've got Calathulu. Welcome, sir.
Hey, guys. Welcome from sunny Southern California, where it's only 90 today.
And from Northern California, a.k.a. Washington.
Our hat.
This is not California. And honestly, Bridger, you should have just continued to do the show via Russian-style dash cam.
Ooh. And then I might catch a meteorite on film, too.
Exactly.
And we get double the fun. Actually, wait a minute. It's a meteoroid when it's in space, and a meteorite when it's on the ground, but it's a meteor.
Asteroid in space.
No, well, maybe.
No.
I'm going to do this right now. Live research. Versus
yes, only the finest in scientific fact here for you folks.
Versus meteor.
I don't know.
This has proven to me that I don't know how to spell meteor. What is the difference between a meteor and a meteoroid? A meteor. The debris is called a meteoroid. There you go. Bam! Science right here. So, now that we've scared away all the people that are looking for an actual structured show, let's get on with it. By the way, you can email us, feedback@talesofcitizens.com. We're always looking for good feedback on what you like, what you didn't like. So if you'd like to tell me how stupid it was that I stopped the show to talk about meteoroids, you can do it right there. That's your outlet. Feedback@talesofcitizens.com. Let's get on to Life in the Verse. Callie, what's going on with you, buddy?
Well, I've been playing Elite Dangerous, Little Marine Commander. You know, the two things we're really excited about.
Absolutely.
All the space sims coming out.
What's new in Elite, by the way? I know everybody probably watching this show has been keeping up with Star Citizen, but Elite is changing on a fairly regular basis. What's going on?
Continuously, really. And
it's way more dangerous now.
It is way more dangerous than it was. They've expanded, some of the area you can explore in. They've brought in some new ships. And one thing I kind of like, and I hope that SIG considers this for the Persistent Universe beta when they have it, is that when they do a reset, they take all the goods you have sitting in your account, and they just give you a cash value for that, and then they apply the reset. So if you've been trading a lot in the middle of this beta, or you've been running a lot of missions, getting a lot of bounties, when they do a wipe, you don't lose everything. Now maybe finding all of the stuff you had before is kind of a pain, but you have the cash to do it. So it's kind of a way of you can rebuild a little faster than you were before.
That's similar to what Guild Wars 2 did during the betas. They gave everybody that bought actual real gems with their cash money, they just said, buy whatever you want, because when you're done, you'll get all those gems back to spend in the real game after the reset. That's made the most sense to me. I hope that that there definitely is a reset for the beta PU. There's just so many. We've talked about that in the past.
And then in Arena Commander, my controller issues persist, so I am relegated to mouse, keyboard, and voice attack only. One day I'll use the joystick of the multitude that I own. One day.
All right, Gray, what's going on with you, buddy?
Well, I am no longer relegated to using mouse and joystick. I finally picked up a X55. It is a wonderful thing. Mine actually showed up and was not defective, unlike some folks here. And it has been a very busy week of programming the joystick in the XML files because you don't want to use the default software. Just don't do it. It's a bad choice.
What did they do? What did they do in the default? Did they put the wrong buttons in the wrong places? What did they do wrong? Because the Logitech default setup, I haven't really felt like I'd had to change it for the Extreme 3D Pro. Let me show off my awesome joystick.
Oh yeah. Well, the the main problem that I ran into is actually that most of the keys aren't programmed on the X55 by CIG's current default, which is understandable. It has 40-some buttons, and everyone's going to want to use them a different way. The other thing that I ran into is the default setup for the X55, if you're trying to program using the software for the Rhino, is that it just turns key presses into button presses. So if I were to jam my trigger, and that's supposed to be the Z key, it's going to type Z on my screen 55 times, because it's not just going to do it once, it's going to do it repeatedly.
Oh.
So you have to basically go in and program a new XML file, or edit the one that CIG made for you already, which is great. And then the only thing that I'm currently using the default profiler for is macros to move my shields around, because that command currently doesn't work by default. So, but it works nice with the macro, so it's been great being able to just buzz around in this thing and not get blown up.
I do want to say that's one of my favorite features of voice attack is shield commands on the fly. VA, shields forward, VA, shields rear, that kind of thing.
That's great. I've got this one little set of buttons right here.
Yeah?
Uh-huh.
That is all of the shields. It is amazing.
Well, I don't have anything new in the Star Citizen realm, but I have been playing a little bit of space-related games like Space Run. I don't know if you guys ever played Galaxy Trucker, but Space Run is obviously very heavily influenced by Galaxy Trucker. Have you ever played the Galaxy Trucker?
I have not.
Have we talked about it on the show? Because I talk about these things all the time, and I don't want to repeat myself.
It before, once a while back, but...
Let me find a quick Google image here for you of the Galaxy Trucker. So here we go. This is a very blurry picture of the Galaxy Trucker, which is you have all these tiles. It's a tabletop board game that you have to... They're all face down at the very beginning, and then everybody's trying to build their ship from these sporadic parts that have to connect properly and not, actually... Because you need, certain connectors only work... these two go to... Double works with a double, single works with a single, and the universal works with everything. But then you need your thrusters in the back, because whoever gets there first gets the most money. Then you got your little dudes that you have to keep alive, because they can get cargo, and that gets you money, and then you've got your aliens, and you got your lasers, because you have to stop space pirates from attacking you. After everybody does this frantic thing, and of course, whoever finishes their ship first gets to start in the lead, you do this whole frantic thing where everybody's trying to build a ship as fast as possible, and then you try to run through a gauntlet, and that's exactly what Space Run is. And it's pretty cool. So,
sounds like a blast.
Oh, yes, perfect. You got a nice picture of a ship transporting nuclear cargo across pirate-infested space. But this is actually really interesting, because instead of building your ship ahead of time, you have to build it on the way. So anyway, Space Run is pretty fun. I'd recommend it for like 10 or 15 bucks, maybe. I don't know how much it is now. I got it on sale. It's a fun... If you're looking for something that you can do just for fun, it's fun. But the other one that I've been playing is Distant Worlds. I don't know, have you guys played Distant Worlds?
I haven't touched it yet.
No, I haven't gone into that one yet.
This is apparently the 4X space equivalent of the Europa Universalis or the Paradox games, because of the amount of detail that it goes into and the minutia that you can get engrossed in. I have had like 3 different people say, I have played a lot of 4X games, and this one is incredibly replayable, and it is super well done if the interface is a little bit in your way. I've just barely started scratching the surface on this one, and I cannot yet recommend it. I have to keep playing to get a little bit more into it and tell you how it is. But maybe we'll get that by the time we come back in August. I'll be able to tell you about that awesome space game. There we go.
Given the retail price, add it to your wish list now and see when it goes on sale.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed that it wasn't going. It kind of just came out, even though all the games have kind of been out for a while. It's weird. It's a game that had come out on this Matrix game site, which is a war game site, which has a very niche audience. They don't do sales because they can only sell like 5,000 copies, so they have to make them full price or it won't count. Probably a little more than 5,000, but you get the point. So they're not used to sales, and I think that's why they are not putting it on sale. But I bit the bullet anyway because I'm looking for a Space 4X. And anyway, let's jump back into Star Citizen, right? So this is Star Citizen. We're talking about Star Citizen. So here's the thing.
We get a very special 2 Bridger rants in one day
A
today.
double Bridger rant.
Here.
Beware.
For those of you who turned in early and got to
A
see
two
him rant about
rancher.
video editing,
Yeah, maybe
you're
I'll
in
just
for a
take
treat.
the rant that I do and stick that. I don't know if I can stick that on the end. Maybe I can. We'll try the YouTube editor after this. So, many of you probably saw this flight model and input controls. What was it, an article? Sort of a Death of a Spaceman-esque article talking about the actual controlling of your spacecraft and the physics of their system. It was an update on the old physics article, basically. And there are a lot of really cool things in here. It puts a lot of fears to rest. Let's put it that way, right? A lot of people found a lot of things in here to like, including me. There's a lot of good stuff in here talking about turreting, and don't worry about the arcadey nature. That's just a result of it being too good of a physics simulation, and it's all great. But there's one thing here in the control devices section that I had a problem with, where I started reading it, and the more that I read it, the more my head exploded with anger and rage. And so I got a little frustrated. And when I get frustrated, I can't find my music. And there we go. When I get frustrated from not finding my music, I get angry. And when I get angry, I've got a vent. And when I vent, it's called a Bridger rant. That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at the sentences that we can find here. Now, first he goes to start to address the whole arcadey feel about the fact that keyboard and mouse, some people are saying keyboard and mouse makes this game too arcadey. Well, okay, I'm ready to hear him out. Let's see what he says. He says, the goal for Star Citizen will be controller agnostic. Now, I'm all on board with being controller agnostic. What that means is the developers aren't gonna make all of their time and effort spent on just keyboard and mouse or just joystick or just gamepad. They're gonna put as much time and effort into each control system that they can. But then he goes on to say, no one control system should have an advantage over the others. And that's where my head explodes! Alright? You can't just say that and make it true. They're very, very different control systems. This isn't the same as this. And this has 2 little joysticks. They're gonna be fundamentally different. There's no way that one isn't gonna be better than the others. There's just no way. And I don't care which one you pick, the fact that you can say that and believe it, or maybe it's just PR speak. Maybe he's saying that to calm everyone down except me. So he says, let's go on. He says, personally, I am a joystick pilot, either HOTAS or gamepad. Okay, let me just say something. These may be called joysticks. But we should call them joystickies or joy kids. Like, they need to be, they're too small.
Kill joysticks.
Kitty sticks, I don't know. That
right?
actually sounds pretty bad. So, here's the thing. That's okay. I just feel I have more precise flight control with a joystick. Yes, exactly! Exactly, but in our various studios, there is a huge variety of controller use. Some prefer mouse, some joystick, some HOTAS, and some gamepad. This is the best guarantee that any one control mode will not dominate. I need to switch over my face so you can see when I say no! That is not the best guarantee that any one control mode will not dominate. That is the best guarantee that people with biases will stick to their biases regardless, okay? The fact that people use different things is only evidence that they are comfortable with different things. The only way you can tell whether one control mode will dominate is by polling the top 10 players and finding out that 9 of them use a real joystick and the other one uses a gamepad and is named Chris Roberts and snuck up there because everybody feels bad for him and doesn't want to get fired.
You mean Chris Crash Roberts? I like Chris Roberts.
Having said this, we recognize that the control input schemes, we need work and flexibility and customization to achieve this goal. No, and to achieve this goal that you've laid out, you need to gimp one of them so the other one feels better. Okay. That's just... The way they worded it makes it sound like they don't understand that there is really going to be a best thing. Like, if you've played enough competitive games, you know that there's gonna be a best thing, whether that thing is the best faction, the best weapon, the best strategy. There's gonna be a best thing when it comes to controllers. Or am I crazy?
Like the Constellation Starship.
Like the Constellation Starship. Exactly. The chat room is suggesting they did this to me on purpose because nobody else will care about
Trackball. Yes, man. Trackball is the future.
Yes, we didn't walk away from those in the 80s for any good reason whatsoever.
We've ruined it, but that would have been an amazing CIG April Fool's edition of, like, their thing. They just going through the office. They don't make any mention of it. They're doing, like, some completely different thing about, hey, let's check out the work in progress of blah, blah, blah. But as you're going through, you see everybody, every single person, 30 people you go by in their workstations all working. Hey, how's it going? They're all using trackballs. And 3 people are playing with trackballs. That would have been the best April Fool's ever.
Oh,
would have been pretty good.
God.
It still could. Maybe nobody will remember what I said except this guy. That's your millions of dollars going to good use, by the way, buying 30 trackballs from the one company still making them.
Interceptor 12 suggests track pads.
Ooh.
Because of the track pad, you don't even need a trigger. You just hit the track pad. You could bind it to everything. Your missiles, your main weapons, your secondary guns, everything at once, even your afterburner.
So using a trackpad for multiple guns, you do like a tickle, tickle, tickle attack? What's going on here?
Carnifex in YouTube says it's going to be hilarious when the HOTAS Master Race losers end up not having an advantage. This isn't about Master Race versus peasantry, all right?
Yeah.
I enjoy that meme, but I would hope that the joystick winds up being the advantageous control system for most situations in Star Citizen, just because I think I enjoy using it and I feel like it would be more immersive. But I am not saying that it will. It might turn out that the way they make the game, just because of the way the physics, not because they had any bias, might be the keyboard and mouse is literally just the better way, or a joystick and a mouse. Yep. I'm just saying it's going to be one of these things. Not that it has to be, or that it has to be my way, or the highway. It's just the fact that it will be, whether they try to make it or not. The only way for it not to be is if they purposefully gimp the best thing in order to bring it down with something else. Anyway.
And they might take that tact. I mean, they might say, you know what, we see that 90% of people are using a HOTAS system because it's too responsive, so we're going to go ahead and play with the control curves a little bit in-game. And that way it's not going to be quite as responsive to make it more on par with the mouse and keyboard. That would keep it to be as agnostic as you say it is.
Right, and I am all in favor. I do want to clarify again, because I know people are going to take me down, because I am all in favor of putting as many tools as possible into the hands of keyboard and mouse players and joystick players and gamepad players as possible, but not trackpads. Fuck trackpad players. But as long as you're not gimping one of the other ones. Anyway.
Well, can we take your rant and dovetail it into what will make our YouTube cast here, the adult mature audience YouTube cast? Assholes. Why is it that you would hope that somebody else is made annoyed or angry because the control scheme that they have, isn't good or isn't competitive? I want to see HOTAS side by side with gamepads, side by side mouse and keyboard. That would be a hell of a coup for Cloud Imperium Games to be able to publish, to advertise. Hey, look, bring whatever you want. It's all going to work about the same.
Yes, and to clarify further, if it turns out that one of these, let's say, is 100% effective. Just, I don't care which one. And the next one down is like 98 or 97, and the next one down is like 90. That would be a major achievement, and that would be awesome.
And good enough, right?
Good enough, exactly. Yeah. So that the people would play what they feel more comfortable with without feeling like they're at a major disadvantage. I personally think they're too different, and maybe keyboard and mouse will be good in certain situations, and joystick will be better in other situations. That's my expectation. Maybe certain ships that don't have really fast, tight turning, that don't rely on maneuverability, like maybe sniper-type ships or long-range torpedo boats that rely on more precision, like a Freelancer's big guns at long range. You're going to want that mouse to perfectly aim right. You're turreting at long range and nobody, you're using that anyway. That I can
Because
see.
You never know.
Yeah, and that's exactly how X3 panned out, by the way. You were better off with a joystick in a dogfight, and you were better off with a mouse and keyboard trying to do anything like the bigger ships, because they didn't steer that quickly.
Yep. Calling it now.
All
Mouse
right.
and keyboard capital ships. It's going to be the way it goes.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
I feel that we could really see pretty much dominant keyboard control specific to situations that you guys were talking about. That super, super long range sorts of damage where missing by a quarter of a millimeter is a problem, particularly if people turn off the targeting computer and they're just aiming at pixels.
Yeah. Because you got to use the Force sometimes.
And if it's something that's just sitting, like literally sitting far, far off, it might be much easier just
In a
to
galaxy
barely
far,
avoid
far
that
away.
keyboard.
Yeah.
But I think for anything involving piloting, I mean, we've talked a little bit about control schemes. I know we've got another show planned to talk more about that. But this whole idea of just being able to center your joystick, that's a huge advantage in a lot of situations for flight. And it's going to be difficult to overcome that with a keyboard and mouse, which I think is why they allow the keyboard and mouse to sort of decouple the weapon gimbaling from the center of the screen.
Yeah.
That was their way of saying, okay, we're going to throw you guys a bone. And I appreciate that, because it means that keyboard and mouse players, watching people do the multiplayer and that kind of thing, tend to turn a little more. Yeah, they're going to hit you more often, but they're also going to be hit more often. It's an interesting trade to make, and I don't want to start that whole flame war, but I think that in the end, you may see a distinct competitive advantage for the joystick setup, but just running around, I think that their goal of saying, well, everything's going to be just about the same is probably about true.
No argument here. On the Travis Day interview, we said the same thing. Look, you guys have done a great job so far in keeping it pretty balanced. Now, mind you, I was told later in a chat that I was full of shit, but hey, I'm always full of shit, so that's a separate issue. But they have done a great job keeping it more or less on par with each other right now so far. So I'm one to say it's going okay. Let's see where it goes, and then not lose our shirts over it. But
I mean, my 16 wave clear times at this point are pretty much even between the two control schemes.
there you go.
I don't see a major difference between the two, but what I do see is when I'm running HOTAS, I don't get hit as often. I keep moving, I can strafe more easily, I have a much cleaner time with that control, and whether that's personal preference or not, I can't comment. I mean, I have no idea if that's just me or what.
Well, that's what makes
But-
this whole thing so cloudy, right? Is people have different levels of skill at different control schemes, so it's incredibly hard to judge just with your own data point. That's why I say the only way this is going to be settled is when everybody's out there playing with their best control schemes, and we look at the table and say, well, out of the top 100 pilots on the leaderboard, this is how many of this control scheme, this is how many of that control scheme, and that will really be the only data that will give us an accurate picture. So
it's going to be the exact same sort of thing that WoW and every other game is used to judge what makes something competitive. They just look at the top players and they say, what's the proportion? Let's go from there.
all right, so we're going to do a different kind of show this week, actually, because we've actually in the past been going from show to show. Almost every show has been, let's take a specific segment of Star Citizen and examine it really deeply. And that's what we called the data analysis, right? That was our very specific analysis of a specific segment. We've run out of things in the Star Citizen universe, really. We've covered all of the elements that we know so far. But we do have other formats up our sleeve. We obviously had the Travis Day interview where we talked about that for a little bit, and we had what we called bite-sized data analysis, where we sort of take a big list of smaller things that don't really fit together and put them all together. Today, we're doing a brand new one. We're calling it Spectrum Watch, and this is all about the news from the last few weeks and our comments on them and discussions and questions that they bring up. So, let's start with the very first. The Cartu was released, guys.
Indeed.
Awesome. That was
Finally
an awesome
shipped
show.
Nobody else knows what the hell that
Very
is.
different
You mean the
style.
Xi'an
It
Scout?
No.
Yes.
The Cartu, that was an awesome video. You don't see it there in the Spectrum, I think, unless you go to the bottom of the there it is.
And there it is.
Yeah, that was a truly awesome looking play.
Absolutely. So now one thing in some of the shots, and I know on the specs it says it has a 2-seater. Maybe that's a variant?
Behind the pilot.
Oh, it's behind?
Yeah, it's an F-18.
I see it. Now I see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird spot, and I suspect that the gunner is going to be going completely off of screens rather than windows by the look of it.
It's probably more like a Rio situation.
Yeah.
Be my guess. So
yeah, the Scout is there to try and pick up enemy ship signatures, anomalies, things like that. So he may not actually be gunning it at all. And looking at the weapons loadout, it appears to be all kind of forward-facing, and they're relying on the ship itself to be able to slew around pretty quick.
Yep.
Yeah. Although, given the harness here, that gives a great argument for allowing 2 joysticks in their control scheme. I can't imagine a way you can get the left and right vertical, lateral thrusting, the strafing.
You just use these trackballs.
You just use these trackballs.
For those of you that are listening and not watching,
trackballs are being supported.
We're looking in the Cartu cockpit. It has, they tried to come up with an alien control system, and they came up with these balls that essentially probably steal your memory inputs through your fingers for some reason. Like they appear to be some kind of weird nerve connectors.
Yeah, that's. I'm not sure what to make of that, honestly, but this is a ship that needs that vertical thrust, lateral thrust all the time in order to reach its full potential, because the whole ship is built around the concept that it can go pretty much equally well in all directions. So we'll see how it goes. I'm looking forward to it. This is one of the ships that I do own, and I'm really looking forward to trying this one out in the dogfight module.
Personally, I'm looking forward to people turning off G safety, blacking or redding out immediately, and then blowing them up.
Yes, that's also a valid tactic with these. Yeah.
So it's going to be just as difficult to remember to call this Cartu instead of the Xi'an Scout as it was to call Arena Commander instead of the dogfighting module.
Dogfight module.
But we're gonna labor through it, I guess.
So the question was just raised in the YouTube chat. It's no main thrusters. It does have 4 main thrusters listed in the ship specs. If you look at the pictures that Bridger's going through here, you can see them, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then it has a variety of maneuvering thrusters, and it looks like those are actually fixed on the hull. So the 4 main thrusters gimbal around, up, down, left, right, and you can go any direction more or less.
Do you think they can spin 180 degrees and take you backwards?
Oh, absolutely.
I absolutely do. And it looks like the weapons themselves, I suspected they were on the same pods as the engines, which would limit its backwards fighting ability. They are not. So this might be one of those ships where you in the Cartu, or in the case of the human exported model, the Cartu Owl, if you want to be pedantic, this is one where you'll actually see pilots who will enter the fight. And Elite Dangerous, you see this a lot because they have fully directional thrust in all directions. Even though the models of the ships don't support that concept really, where the pilots will go in there, reverse the thrust, move it to full, and then just fly backwards at high speed, shooting whatever's coming at them, even outside of like the decoupled safety mode off kind of thing. So this will be, I think, so far the one ship that can do that in Star Citizen, which will make it actually a pretty good dogfighter if you can strafe up and down, left and right a little bit to avoid the incoming fire while shooting your opponents.
Now, some of these make it look like when it's fighting, it's doing it in this vertical position, almost.
I have no idea what to make of that.
Yes.
But obviously,
like B-wing,
this is called landing configuration. It's like more of a cruise, like the wings are pulled in. But then this also, you're right, it looks like a B-wing. But in the video, let's take another look at the video here real quick. The video kind of made it look like it was straight, forward back instead of... Oh, it is straight up and down, just like a B-wing. Okay, so that must be the main... Yeah. Now, let me take a quick stop here. This is what I wanted to ask you guys about. I feel like we have another Freelancer moment coming up with the people who own the Cartu Owl, as it was correctly pointed out by Andreas. The Cartu Owl. That windshield, that's right in your view where you're trying to shoot them. I mean, I guess maybe your HUD could take over and say, yeah, they're still there. They're just on the other side of this thing.
and it would. I mean, if you think about the way Arena Commander plays now, and you're not targeting based on whether you can see the ship or not. You're targeting on what the reticle shows. And it's going to show that even through that pillar. So I don't think it's going to be as big a deal as people feared with the Freelancer initially. But it might be. They may end up redesigning this one a bit, or it could be the disadvantage to flying the ship versus flying the more traditional human fighters.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a really interesting bubble cockpit, and if the only disadvantage to having this huge peripheral vision is this directly in front of you has these two vertical things, that might be a really cool trade-off. Yeah.
And again, with the reticle working, unless you're actually flying at a rock at high speed, so you can't move out of the way in time without killing yourself, blacking out with the G safeties off, and then suddenly you see it coming out from the sides of your pillar, and so the A pillar and B pillar, oh shit,
Here's what you do. You have to create a ship and turn it vertically so that you can perfectly line up with the blind spot of the Cartu. That's the attack angle you need to come in on, so they'll never see you coming except with their HUD.
And then have no sensor signature, so that the ship, which is built for sensor detection, so it should be able to find you, can't see you. That's a hell of an arms race when you get down to it.
Yeah. Now, if only... now I want to say, the Freelancer has those giant guns that can shoot 180 degrees on the side. If only they had a field of view like this. Now, this has guns that can only shoot forward, but it has a great view on the side. When are they going to make... Oh, they did. It's called the Constellation. I forgot.
Yeah. Well, the Constellation is all things to all men, so you should keep that in mind. But other than that...
All right, speaking of the Freelancer, we've had... I'm going to jump forward a little bit, because we had some Freelancer variants here.
Yes.
I actually own one now.
You do?
Wonderful.
Which one?
I do. I picked up the Miss.
I also picked up the Miss, and it was
you go.
My great shame. I am now a Rear Admiral reporting for duty.
Is that all?
Well, as a High Admiral...
Let me tell you,
it's a good place to be. Use that concierge service to your best ability.
Wait, is Rear Admiral gets concierge service?
No, I was teasing you.
No.
Yeah.
Dang. But anyway, one of the things that happened is there's a new jump point out that talked about the creation of the Freelancer variants. And specifically, one of the interesting tidbits in there is that it appears that the Freelancer Miss and Max are going to have larger guns on the back turret than the
It's not
base
in the
model.
specs.
Yeah.
It never made it into the brochure, even by the look of it, necessarily.
Not in the specs, by the way. The specs page for the Miss doesn't even show a rear turret.
Yeah.
So,
but in the jump point, they are pretty hefty about talking about having the larger turrets on the back of the Max and the Miss. As a Max owner, I'm happy about that.
Yep. Specifically, I think Chris Roberts, CR, as he is in the jump point, is the one that suggested having bigger guns. He's like, I think it's a militarized, but it should have bigger guns. I was like, yes, it should. I'm not biased at all.
You know what? The Max has more room. It should have bigger guns, too.
Actually, I think he said the Max should have 2 guns. Right?
Yeah, they were saying the Max
like that.
Should have a gun on the bottom, like a B-17.
2 rear turrets, a belly gunner type and a actual rear gunner top gunner.
Which would increase the crew. Interesting.
Yeah.
Which would, and they actually show more crew for the Max, or is it the Miss? The Miss.
They
that's
show for the
one
Miss.
Yeah.
Because the Miss needs an extra person to manage your 17,000 missiles.
Well, did you see that shot in the jump point? I'll try to pull it up here. I hope it's not like spoilers. I breaking the rules. I just want to show one particular image from the jump point that is supposed to be only available to subscribers. But there's a really cool here it is. I had it open to the exact spot where they sort of show the potential concept for the missile loader setup, because you know that the missile, the Miss variant has the missiles on the top, and that's a really cool thing. That also explains why you have less cargo space. You can see it's obviously taking up a big chunk of the side there. That's a really cool piece, but definitely check it out if you're interested in checking it out. You do need to be a subscriber at this moment, but it'll probably, what is it, a month later everybody gets access to it?
There's a delay, but they let them have a month later. Although I do want to say, I look forward to the Macross style scenes we'll see of missiles in space doing the weird 1001s all flying at random angles.
Oh yeah.
I all I need now is my strangely F-15 like space fighter that transforms into a robot, and I can finally relive my in-bit invasion days.
Yes.
Nice.
I suppose so. All right, so I'm jumping around here. Let's go back up. There was an interesting 10 for the chairman this past week. There was a lot of interesting questions in this one. People who watch 10 for the chairman know that you just throw stuff at your screen going, why are you answering that question instead of the much more important question?
This was a good one.
And the answer,
really good one.
The answer to that, by the way, is always because they can answer that question. They can't answer the other more important question.
They can answer the fish trading question, but they can't answer the...
Yeah, we can trade fish.
Star Citizen Pokemon, you know there's a market for that.
Yeah, in-game, trading card game, come on.
There's already a market for, got to catch all the LTI ships, so yeah, there's definitely ones for this.
I don't know if that's any... Do you know if they've ever asked about that? Because in a lot of, JRPGs, like Final Fantasy games, there's a mini-game that you collect cards or some other game where you collect pieces, I would love to have something like that in the Star Citizen universe, but make it competitive. What is it? Well,
in a literal sense, fish.
Well,
if you visit new areas,
a game.
You can collect
make a real game,
them.
like a card game or something. You can go around and play in the space bars.
So
an equivalent to chess-ish. You can just sit down. Everybody knows the rules. It's simple, but it's also deep and complex. Just make another chess. That's all I'm asking for, Chris Roberts.
Is that all?
Well, we already know that they're modeling the economy on a similar to Space Truckers style board game. So, you've got some options there.
Yeah. All right. So there you go. Let's jump back to this 10 for the chairman, which has actual interesting things. They had new confirmation for player or organization-owned space stations and asteroids that orgs will be fighting over, which is really cool. I mean, we kind of heard about that in the past 10 for the, just good to hear that it's still on the drawing board there. My question to you guys is, EVE Online obviously has this mechanic to some degree, and it's sort of the model that people think of when they think of what Chris is talking about. How similar do you think it will be to EVE Online's model? And could you guys describe that for people who maybe don't know?
Well, EVE Online's model is effectively anarchy. They're going to let you take over an area, and that's what you control. And at that point, you are the law, and you enforce it however you choose to.
Or fail to enforce it however you choose to.
Yeah, or miserably fail to enforce it, as the case often is. Or try to enforce it and get 7,000 ships jumping down your throat because they don't like you anymore. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of that.
And that might be part of it in the pirate-controlled space, but we also know you can control some economic nodes in UEE space, for example, and if that might include stations. They haven't said, and that will be interesting. You'd still be under the guise and the auspices of UEE, but we've heard they're going to do this. I don't know if they're going to use EVE's system. Everyone forgets Star Trek Online has a system for space stations. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I don't think they're going to go that route either. But they managed to distance themselves fairly well from EVE's gaming concepts overall. I don't see them, then just borrowing whole cloth from EVE for space station management. EVE has a good system, but it is anarchy, and what we've seen is that doesn't really work for everybody.
My understanding of how that works is, there are specific things in sectors that control the space around them to some degree. They give you control of automated stuff at the jump points that'll blow up your enemies, and you have to control those stations, and the stations themselves have special shields that can only be penetrated after they've run out of fuel or some weird gaming mechanic.
You're going to have a cost to operate, and you have to have certain amounts of product that's coming in to keep people alive, and yada yada yada. It's sure to be an administrative nightmare, which is ideally what it should be.
Yeah, exactly. But Ian, you make a great point. Actually, they should be an economic need to run these things. They're going to want people that are running these stations shouldn't want to go out there and blow up every merchantman in the area. They should be desperate to get those ships coming in to deliver cargo to keep trade flowing. If you do it right, that is the purpose of a space station. When you get down to it in these games, it's not there unless it's a military outpost, or it's there for trade and to make trading easier, right there on the border of Banu space.
And I suspect we'll see a lot of the asteroid bases and that kind of thing that have been discussed, more as military outposts. Those are going to effectively have no real
they're
control of the surrounding space. It's just going to be a place where you hide ships.
Now,
maybe have some turrets.
Yeah. My other hope is that they turn the asteroid hangars into areas that are basically space meth labs. So you go out there to do your cooking, Jesse, and if you're caught, like you could do that in UEE space, and then if you're caught, like if a UEE patrol goes by and notices you, you could be seriously boned. And if you're not caught, then so much the better. So they talked about contraband, drugs, slavery, etc., which are all great aspects for the lawless pirate gameplay. And so an asteroid base where you're cooking space meth by distilling it from furry rock crabs, or whatever they called them in the Time for the Chairman, or would be an awesome little side game. You go out there. See, Bridger, there's your gotta catch them all. You go out there with a giant net and a box, and you try and catch the
space meth.
Yeah, you try and catch the various rock crabs so you can distill different space meth.
No. You try and collect the various space meth rock crabs, and then you have them battle each other, and then the winner is turned into meth. Or the loser is turned into space meth.
Well, it's like the what was it? The Imagine Dragons music video where the Muppets fight each other to the death. Have you not seen that?
Oh God,
have not.
After the show, I will find it. You will watch it. You will be horrified. It's perfect.
Oh yeah, that sounds perfect. Moving on. CIG, more stuff from the 10 for the Chairman. CIG is actively looking at adding a spectator mode to Arena Commander.
Yeah,
That's awesome. In addition, he used the term clans to describe different competing factions in a competitive mode. Old school FPS represent.
I still feel that clans is the term that they should use for like Vanduul affiliated groups only. We're fleets. We're corporations. We're not. We're not clansmen. I don't have a top knot. We're good to go.
Aye, you're gonna take that back there, laddie. Maybe. I
see. You're going for the Irish clans. There you go. But again, it's cool. I agree. They are doing the throwback to the old school FPS, which is nice. Back before we knew any better.
Now, the other pieces that were interesting here is Chris Roberts declares Star Citizen to be the most accurate on the simulation side, and he includes Elite Dangerous in that. Of all the space games out there, he says ours is the most accurate when it comes to simulation.
Those empty fighting words, it's probably true.
It probably is.
He's thrown the gauntlet down, but on the simulation side, when you're piloting spaceships, in Elite Dangerous, I mentioned this before, but they have intentionally disabled the yaw in a big way. So you yaw very slowly, to avoid turreting gameplay. They said wasn't fun, and so right there, you've already got a conceit to fun gameplay over physics in Elite that there is not currently in Arena Commander.
That's just it. They made a choice with Elite Dangerous to say we want to make this fun in a specific way. We have a vision for how our control scheme works, and that's completely acceptable.
Yes.
That's something that every developer should do. They should decide how their game is going to play.
In fact, the way that Chris Roberts did it is super risky, because he's like, we're going to use real physics to model how these things would actually work and add thrust that affects the frame. And it could turn out that creates a really shitty experience.
Yeah.
But because CIG and Chris Roberts in particular are so good at coming up with in-universe reasons to make changes to make the game play better, you got like things like the G-force problem and all these other things that they say, oh, well, here's all the reasons that we have to have your ship limit your movement in specific ways in order to make the game fun.
And we're going to be waiting and seeing. We still don't have programmed into Star Citizen, which people really need to remember, the mass of the ship isn't affecting your ability to turn.
It's true.
There currently isn't anything, as far as I understand it, Star Citizen, that actually accounts for the mass of your ship. It's not slowing you down.
It's not factored in yet. Correct. That's correct.
And when that starts hitting, you're going to see a real difference between flying a Freelancer and flying a Hornet, or flying a Hornet and a 300i.
Yeah.
And those just aren't quite in yet. What they're trying to have us test right now in this pre-alpha product, which is awesome, is just the individual thrusters working on basically a solid model.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which you can break off and have all sorts of wonderful things simulated. But the mass isn't in yet, and that's something we'll get to see.
Now, do we know if the mass isn't in yet, or they all have the same mass when they do the turn in that?
I'm not
I can't
entirely
remember.
sure
I think
that
Travis talked about it
Yeah.
2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
3 weeks ago now.
I think Travis said they just weren't modeling yet
yeah,
based
I'm
on
pretty
the
sure
mass.
that's the case. But he
All
said
right,
that it
so-
will affect it, like having cargo in your Freelancer is going to
Yeah.
affect how it handles, for example.
And they had that in the jump points too. They were saying the same thing. Cargo would change it. But does that mean that the Aurora, where everyone feels like it already handles like a brick, is going to handle more brick-like once it gets some weight behind it?
Well,
Or-
maybe no. If they're not factoring it in, if they've just given everything a blanket mass and said you're going to
Well,
operate
that's-
as if this is your mass, then the Aurora might go down in comparison.
That's
to
what I
other
was
ships.
saying. If they already have like a 10,000 kilogram mass for everything in the Aurora, I'm not checking my numbers, people. Don't yell at me. And the Aurora weighs 1,000 kilograms, in real life, which I know it doesn't. It would actually become much more maneuverable. But if everything right now is a zero mass and the thrusters are operating on it, everything is going to slow down in maneuverability pretty quick.
Well, it's got to have some mass. The system must be assuming some mass, because if you're applying thrust to something and you put zero mass, it'd be like, okay, it goes infinite that way, right?
Or a 1 or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. Now, the last thing that I found in this particular 10 for the chairman that was really interesting is they finally sort of defined the scale of Star Citizen. Specifically, Chris Roberts explained that the current Arena Commander maps are about 8 to 9 kilometers on a side.
Yeah.
And that they don't yet have double floating point precision in the game yet, but once they've got that finalized in the code, they'll be able to make the maps way bigger, like 1,000,000 kilometers on a side. And
But
that,
all this assumes Crytek isn't going bankrupt tomorrow.
well, that's another
Sorry,
piece of news,
sorry.
but that also, you're just fear-mongering there.
I'm just teasing.
That still
it
wouldn't
was-
damage it. They have
No.
their engine. They have
They
their
have the
license.
source
Crytek
code,
will
and they're
never be-
building
Yeah.
their own game with it. They don't need
I know.
Crytek.
I was enjoying what I thought initially was a troll thread on the main forums. It turns out to have been either someone much more subtle than I am at trolling, or someone who actually had a real concern for not a great reason. So there you go.
So anyway, Chris said
1,000,000
that
miles
they could have
or
a 1,000,000 kilometers, right, on a side, and that he was
Yeah.
hoping, he knew that they weren't going to actually be able to model real solar system scales, right? It's just
Yes.
not possible, because it
No.
wouldn't even be fun either to try and do
Yeah.
that. But so
And
he's
1
hoping...
AU is
He's hoping they can put an entire solar system in a single quote-unquote map that's
Yeah.
1,000,000 miles, 1,000,000 kilometers, I should say, plus or minus. So I went and did the math, and I found that our solar system, for example, is about 80 AUs across.
Yes.
And
Now,
an
1
AU
AU
is equal to
yeah.
93,000, no, sorry, 93 million
93
miles.
million miles.
So that would be 7,440,000,000 miles. 7 billion miles, give or take. Now, if we take that and we turn it into kilometers, then what we get is I have to do that's millions. So we get 11 billion, about 12 billion kilometers. So that means confirmed Star Citizen is provided at a 12,000 to 1 scale model of the solar system. That's
for
how
our
I
solar
went and did my
system.
math. Right, for
For
our
our solar system. Never mind all the other ones that are out there, primarily around binary stars. Yeah. I think what'll happen
This is why we use AU. This is true.
I think what will have happen is they're going to have like areas of interest, and then in between those areas of interest, you'll have your 0.2c, which will actually, the system cruise speed.
Yeah.
Which will not, like, it's going to say it's 100 light years away. No, that's not even right. It's going to say
Light
it's a million
seconds.
kilometers.
Light seconds.
1,000,000 kilometers away. 100 light seconds away. There you go. And in reality, it's like 4. And it takes a little while to get there, and then you're there. And maybe you get knocked out of it by some pirate or something, waiting for that to happen. But yeah, I don't see it quite. Or they can make 93 million individual 1 million kilometer boxes, and have you go through that.
Yeah, no. All right, so other things that have happened recently. Well, Around the Verse is the new Wingman's Hangar replacement. That's been going.
Yeah.
So I've been watching it. Have you guys been watching it? What's
Absolutely.
your thoughts?
It's getting its start. It's never going to be as polished and perfectly ridiculous as Wingman's Hangar was at the time when Wingman's Hangar ended. Plain and simple, it needs more time to get on its feet.
That's true.
And I think it's a good show. I think it has a ton of potential, and I enjoy it. But it's going to be a little time until it's got that level of ridiculousness that Wingman brought every week.
I don't think it's ever going to get to that level of ridiculous, though. It's a little more polished and a little more structured, and they have made massive gains in the first few episodes. Like from number 1 to number 3, it is massively better than where it started in just 3 episodes. But Wingman, his personality was a lot of what drove that show. Eric's personality, I should say, and they are in the studio in LA. They've got a lot more talent to pull from, a lot more hosts they're going to look for and talk on the show. But it's not going to be quite as one personality driven as Wingman's Hangar was.
Yeah, at the same time,
that's my take on it.
I think they're missing their mark. I mean, what they call it the talk show at the end of the universe, but it's a lot more like a news show. I mean, we're doing right now is a talk show. We have an agenda, but then we just talk off the cuff. And, I mean, take the most recent episode, they were literally reading off of pieces of paper. That's just not appealing. And I love Sandy, and I love the guys at CIG, and I'm saying this with all due respect and constructive criticism in mind, but and it's I'll be the first one to say this is a difficult thing to do. This is not something you just get up in the morning and say, I'm going to do a show and walk into the thing and no prep necessary. Like, I spend so much time putting this together, and I'm sure they do as well. I'm sure they do as well. But my point is simply that the format dictates a lot of how your show feels. And even though I'm sure Wingman was probably reading off of things to some degree, he was able to pull it off like he wasn't most of the time. And I don't know, it just felt like his talks with the other guy that was always on there with the ponytail, and now I can't remember his name. Frank? No.
No.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm having the same moment.
Damn it.
I can't remember his name. Yep.
And now he hates the show. Awesome.
No, he doesn't hate the show.
Just us.
Chat room, save us.
Right.
I can't remember. He's always talking to him with the when they're doing the forum feedback. Rob! Why was I thinking Frank? Rob.
I just pulled it up on YouTube
Rob
too.
Irvin. Yes, they always had really interesting. It wasn't perfect. It was I wouldn't say it was perfect, but it was very enjoyable.
Well, I want to point out,
and it's possible Go ahead.
We forgot Rob's name, but Wingman actually forgot to take Rob to the studio once, so I think we're still up.
and to be fair, Wingman got our name wrong, so that's okay. He called us Tales of the Citizens, so I guess we have to change our name. Yeah. So anyway, thank you, chat room.
He wasn't really reading from a card.
So yeah, and it's possible, like what you were saying, is maybe they just need more time to get their sort of on-air personality interactions working, but it might also be a format thing. But yeah, I think most people are sort of saying it's still good to have these, but it would be nice to have Wingman back. But I'm pretty sure that his role was expanding on a developer / designer side, so he didn't literally have time to do the hangar anymore.
The guy seems to be a brilliant project manager. They would be idiots, honestly, to leave him doing a show, even a really amazing show, when they could move him over to doing some incredible things with the game itself and making their office run smoother in Austin. It's a pretty quick decision for them to make.
Well, especially when they have so many people in LA who are familiar with shows and broadcasts and advertising and PR and all that. So yeah.
Plus, they're in LA if they happen to need any other resources, because
What, are you saying LA has more resources in special effects and film than Austin? I don't see how that could be possible.
That doesn't sound likely at all. All right, so moving on. We've got a little time left to cover these last pieces here. There was a very interesting lore piece added called This Day in History, brought to you by Kelto Con Stores. I don't know if that's storing convicts or containers. Probably containers.
It can be both.
This was a very interesting discussion of the battle for Centauri. This is the battle that took place right before the end of the Second Tevaran War, and it describes how Squadron 42 gained their fame, essentially, and what makes them special aside from every other squadron in the game. Squadron 1, 2 through 41, they're just chumps compared to Squadron 42. Why is that? Well, I was actually surprised because I didn't know the backstory behind Squadron 42 and who they are and why they are, et cetera, et cetera. But
I don't think any of us did yet.
Yeah, this might be brand new information. Spoilers, Squadron 42 is not the place where they put all the elite pilots. It's the place where they put all the insubordinate pilots.
It was the place where they put all the insubordinate
used to
pilots.
be.
We don't know about that now.
You're right. You're right. This is history. It could not be the same.
Yeah.
I think it also matches the original Wing Commander story, doesn't it? Where they had the ragtag group of pilots on disciplinary charges, and that's where they stuck you, the starting pilot, out with your first crew.
So you're saying this is a very, very distant future version of the Elder Scrolls series where you start as a prisoner.
Oh, God. That's why the Elder Scrolls Online bombed. Their whole crew came over to make Star Citizen.
There you
I
go.
guess so. So, yeah, I mean, that was one of the questions I was going to ask you guys. I mean, when I first realized that, I was like, yeah, this sounds kind of cliched. A little bit. Like the Wing Commander movie. Like, oh, yeah. Ragtag group of not trusted people are going to prove that they can be trusted. They just work in a different way than everybody else. And,
Well, the answer is, of course, is cliche. This is a game based on everyone's favorite space opera sci-fi kind of themes. And that in and of itself is one giant cliche. I mean, you can sit down and read the Chris Longknife series, and then you can also go over and read, what is it, the Fleet, or any of the series, the Honor Harrington series. It's all cliched along the same basic premises. So yeah, to me, that it's cliched is not surprising at all. I kind of expected it to be, and I was not disappointed.
I think what would be interesting is if they use that as an origin point, right? It was the place where they sent all the insubordinate but quality but high skill pilots that would be ashamed to just put in the firing squad because they were still too damn valuable to do that to, right? That's how it started. But as you point out, that doesn't necessarily mean that's how it is presently. What they could have done is say, listen, we need most military organizations work really well when you have people who simply follow orders because that's just how things are done. And when everybody does that, you have order and discipline and hierarchy that all works and the gears are all turning. It's like discipline is the grease that runs everything, right? Yep. But apparently they basically found out through this battle that there are certain advantages towards letting pilots just have their own way if they're capable enough. But since most pilots aren't capable of doing their own thing and improvising and making things up on the fly, that's why most pilots aren't in Squadron 42. So Squadron 42 becomes a place where you send the elite talented pilots who can improvise, who are basically their own leaders, who are not good at leading other people, but can make quality decisions for themselves. So they wouldn't make a great admiral, but they do make great squadron pilots. You know what I mean? That would be a really interesting twist on it.
Well, and isn't that a lot of the premise of modern special forces? Is these are the guys who are dropped in with they're all highly trained. They all know, they're all highly trained. They all know what they're doing. And then when they actually get on the ground, it's up to them to decide the best way to go forward to complete the mission in many cases. Now, they are generally short missions, and they train for months. I mean, you talk about special forces now, and they might train for months on something like a compound raid. Not that I'm making any parallels between Squadron 42
And Zero Dark 30?
And Zero Dark 30, or the damn it, not the Al Qaeda compound raid that they made in Pakistan to get Osama bin Laden.
That's Zero Dark 30. The movie was based on that raid.
You're right. Not that I'm making any comparisons here between these things. I'm just saying the Special Forces concept, Squadron 42 was basically a prison outfit that became a Special Forces group now for their pilots, which would be very cool. And I think that means the Cheveran want revenge.
Ah, yes.
That would also mean that Squadron 42 is kind of a bridge point to the Marines, to some degree, because the Marines are just the elite end of the Navy, so far as the lore is concerned on this.
As far as the Marines are concerned, also, by the way, I know many Marine who would call themselves the elite of the Navy, regardless of the Navy's feelings on this.
All right, so the last article that we have to talk about today, and I do want to point out that what we try to do when we're talking about news articles is not just go and read them to you, because they're there for you to read, and we're not going to do as good a presentation as you will in your head as you read through these things. So I know that we're not talking about everything that's in these. It's assumed that if you want to, you can go to the show notes, and there's links there. There's also links for all of these on the Robert Space Industries website, but the show notes are available on talesofcitizens.com, and what we're trying to do is bring out the discussion that is caused by the things that are going on there. So there might be a little spoilers. It might be you want to go check these out before you listen to the show. I probably should have mentioned that maybe before we started talking about all this stuff, but okay, so we've got the AI design in the Vandal Swarm. This is an article from actually really recently, right? This is one came out just last couple of days. Yeah. And it's a really cool article, and I loved reading about it.
I have not actually read this one yet. I have been massively busy the last couple of days and have not sat down with it. Well, so this is all spoilers for me. So
there you
by
go.
all means, paint me a picture.
They specifically talk about, for example, how a lot of designing good AI is not about designing AI that will, do really well. That's super easy. You can just tell the computer, you're a computer, calculate all the perfect projectiles for everything. It's how to create an AI that's not perfect, but still feels valid, is the very difficult way of doing things. And then they talk about how you give each individual boss their own personality, and how you sort of make them fight different. And I didn't necessarily notice that, but I only played Arena Commander through the Vandal Swarm, until I got pretty good at it, and then I said, okay, I'm waiting for multiplayer. So that is what we're sort of sitting with here. But one of the things that this sort of made me think of, considering AI in so many other games, in order to be better than the player, just cheats. It just cheats. So, let me ask you this. Do you guys, when you die in Arena Commander due to something other than a bug, do you feel like the AI is cheating you? Does it feel fair when you die?
Yes.
Yeah, it's felt very fair every time I've got my butt handed to me in the game.
When I get
I
rammed,
haven't seen any evidence of the AI cheating on trying to figure out which direction to fire before you move that way, or even, the projectiles go in straight lines. I'm not having lasers curve around and hit me just because they want the AI to be, hey, I've seen it in other games.
You're right,
I've seen AI where the lasers will turn to hit you because that's what makes the AI good.
Yes, that AI was based on the movie Wanted with Angelina Jolie and Morgan Freeman, where you can curve bullets.
That's just it. With this, they're definitely forcing the AI to play by the same rules. Yeah. And the smarter AI is definitely better at figuring out to get behind you or get beneath you. I've noticed the Vandal alphas, when you start getting up over wave 13 or so, some of those AI are smart enough to really try to get behind you. Unless you're really comfortable with decoupled and you're really, really comfortable with strafing, you're going to die. You're going to die almost instantly because they will get a firing solution and they will kill you. There isn't any kid gloves in that situation. No.
In fact, that's why.
They're beatable. As most of us can attest to, I believe the three of us have all gotten through all the waves. These are doable. You can kill them, you can get past them, and yes, it is hard, and it requires a lot of effort. And God forbid that I ever had to run into, 5 Cutlass piloted by this AI, because that would hurt.
It's a lot of shirts.
The fact that I'm thinking that now means that their piracy stuff already is going to have an effective chilling effect on trade.
Yeah. Without escorts, it would have a very chilling effect on trade. And actually, I will say, with the AI as it stands now, I take a kind of a point of pride when I can avoid being rammed by one of the Vandal Scythe blades coming my way.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, no, that kind of thing. So it's, and the other thing I like is how well the more advanced AI is really showcasing what we can expect from, as in the persistent universe, the AI gets, older and wiser, so to speak. They will get better and better about their firing solutions. So if you go and fight a pirate who beats you, and you come back a month later and that guy's still there, he's going to be a lot better than the first guy that beat you, or got away from you, whichever one he happened to do. And so that, to me, is really cool. That shows a very growing, persistent universe that is actually changing over time.
Well,
Go ahead.
If you've been reading some of the Jump Point fan fiction, I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, or not fan fiction, excuse me, in-universe fiction, it's totally legit. You'll notice that pirates definitely seem to increase their wealth and their ships and their weaponry as time goes on. If they're doing something right, they're not getting blown up by players, they're not being, or they're successfully raiding players particularly, or NPC convoys, the pirates are going to get stronger, not even necessarily by the AI being smarter, but because they're going to end up with bigger ships. Yeah. And that's going to hurt.
That's pretty cool. Players have been ignoring Sector X for a while.
For too long.
And the NPCs have been beat up by NPC pirates, and now there's like a Captain Rogers, the mighty Dread Pirate Rogers is in there. So
now you've got to deal with 5 or 6 Cutlass that are all custom armed from all that cargo that they've been stealing. And you know what? The AI is just as good as the first time you fought it. It hasn't gotten any better. But the guns have.
The guns have.
There you go.
So one of the things that is pointed out in this article is here's a quote, Vandal's AI doesn't cheat. It doesn't have access to any information a human player wouldn't, and does obey all the same physical rules. It's able to process that information much more quickly and respond much more precisely than the most experienced fighter race ever could. So to give its opponents a fighting chance, we had to build in weaknesses as well as strengths, unquote. Now, one of the other things they point out in here is that one of the first weaknesses they introduced, for example, for the first few waves, they make those scythes not as good as the waves that come later, in order to allow people to sort of get their feet wet and figure out what they're doing, because a brand new pilot's going to go into there for the first time, right? So
have a scythe immediately ram a blade down your throat's a little disheartening.
So what they did was they lowered the accuracy of the weapons, and they found that worked well, except that it would wind up where the player could be standing still, turreting, and the Vandal couldn't get a firing solution. So they had to scale the inaccuracy based on how fast the player was going. So in those early waves, the faster you're going, the less likely they are to hit you. And then when you get towards the higher waves, I'm sure that still plays a part in somewhat, but not necessarily as big a part. That's cool.
And that's smart.
That actually explains a lot, too, because early on, playing Arena Commander, I'd always just jam the throttle to 100, which I know you're not supposed to do now. But I just jam it up there. I never got hit, but had a hard time hunting down the first few waves. Now, I keep it about 60 unless I need to go faster, and they hit me more often, but I do defeat the waves a lot faster. So, there you go.
Easier to turn, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and, I mean, that's a really smart way to handle dumbing down the AI is to say, hey, the AI is going to have trouble just like a player would hitting a faster target.
Yeah.
I mean, go with the logical option.
Yeah. No question.
All right.
Yeah, this to me seems to be the real future for AI in any of these games, by the way. I look forward to seeing what Kythera does next, like what their next big gaming project is after Star Citizen.
It's actually, what is it, Moonbase? Moon something?
Moon Collider.
Is that what it is?
Moon Collider is the company that makes Kythera. Kythera is the AI product, and they're making a specialized version for Star Citizen.
For Star Citizen.
Yeah.
And probably anything they do will be specialized for whatever game they put it in. I also am really looking forward to seeing what they do with Kythera in the first-person shooter. Because, I remember my days of first-person shooting, like, Battlefield and Counter-Strike, the bots were never great. if this one has really cool bots, I look forward to seeing what happens with that. That's going to be a truly awesome experience for all and sundry. To actually have like the guys run away and then the other guy ambush you if they really are communicating to that extent.
And we've already seen Moon Collider gave us some video of how they were making the AI look around.
Yeah.
You know, they're saying, oh, this is the AI's field of view. This is what they can tell is there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if the NPCs that you're going to be fighting in the first-person shooter or on the ground are operating that same way, there's going to be some interesting questions about what constitutes awareness. You know, how much are they looking behind
They've already mentioned,
them?
I think it's in this video somewhere, but they've mentioned that what they've been trying to work on is having a dynamic AI. It looks like it's not in this video, unfortunately, but like for example, they showed this landing Hornet, and they had an AI that was walking from point A to point B, and as the Hornet started to touch down, the AI was smart enough to realize and say, oh, there's now something in my way. I have to adjust my path and walk around instead of colliding right through it. So there was another video where it shows like a whole bunch of storage crates.
Yeah,
and it shows you what the AI can see, quote unquote, in terms of obstacles. And as the storage crates fell over and formed a different pattern on the ground, the pattern of where the AI could actually position its feet changed as well. So that was kind of a cool technology that shows how they're going to make them smart enough to path correctly in the dynamic universe.
Yeah. So that should be pretty cool. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
I also want to board your Idris to kill your dudes. Let's be clear on this.
Don't want to send an AI in there. We want to actually...
No. I want to shoot your AI. That's what I'm saying.
There you go.
Idris Railgun. The great equalizer.
All right. I think that about wraps it up for this episode, guys. We've got we had a lot of stuff to talk about, and I think we covered it well. And hopefully, by the time we come back in August, we'll be able to talk all about multiplayer Arena Commander and our experiences with mouse and keyboard versus joysticks, and we'll bring that war back up again and see what happens with the leaderboards.
Pitchforks. Here we go, guys.
Assuming they keep it at 10,000, I should be in the next 2 waves, I think, something like that. So.
Because they're at what, 20,000 now?
30 as of last
30.
week.
Okay, there you go. So yeah, if they keep doing about 10 a week, we could see it fairly soon. Gray, what's your citizen number?
Oh, I'm in the low hundreds, I think.
I got 99,000 here, so we could definitely see it by the end of August for sure. But I think they might start ramping it up. By the time they get to 50,000, they might just go, let's jump up to 75. You know, because once you're supporting that many.
Yeah, or 100.
Much easier to deal with that once you have the volume.
And yeah, for those of you that are tuning in, we're going on a hiatus for about a month, maybe a little more, might be a little less. I'm moving to a new house that we just bought, and I'm building a studio in the basement specifically for this. We're not going to use a green screen. We're going to actually build a cockpit.
There's going to be a pit. There will be lotion and skin. Will be
so what I'm asking there, Bridger, are you building the studio, or are you hiring someone to build the studio for you?
A little from column A and a little from column B.
Okay, so I have hope for a month. If it was just you, I'd say 2 months, maybe 3.
Yeah. But we got it all figured out. It's gonna be super soundproofed all over the place, so that we can use the nice microphone and not use the crappy microphone, because you can hear quite a difference when you go. But you know, this is a really good headset microphone, but it's not nearly as good as the SM57. I was gonna say 78. SM57 is a good one. Okay, thanks guys for tuning in. We'll see you in August-ish.
August-ish.
Bridger's signing off.
Thanks for tuning in.
You guys have a nice night.
I do need to get some sun, but that's a different point entirely. Listen, I am entirely 1/4 Italian. Can you not tell by my bronzed Mediterranean skin? I guess we must be North Italian. I actually don't know. I'm not sure.
That's just Swiss, Bridger. That's just Swiss.
Northern Italian is not Swiss. The Genoese would hold that against you, I think.
Yes. So, quick question. Given that we had a little bit of some trolling there in YouTube, can you add more people who can block or whatnot?
Yeah, I thought I added you.
Did you add calithulu@gmail.com?
Let me try.
Okay.
I might have added a different one. Oh, it says there are currently no mod. You know what? Maybe I have to. It says you do not have a YouTube account.
Oh.
But it looks like for each video I might have to add a moderator. It's not like Twitch. I can't just add a permanent moderator, unfortunately. But yeah, I banned that guy, and he won't be back.
Yeah.
Yay.
I realized.
Who are we dealing with over there? I didn't even see that.
I removed his thing. He was just calling people noobs for no reason every time somebody said something. It's okay, James Brand. We got your back.
What a pleasant fellow.
Yeah, it's great when someone just shows up to be an asshole. Speaking of assholes, you know what it is. That's where I went wrong. I said assholes 3 times.
Oh,
I
summoned them.
I summoned them. Damn it! It's like
Beetlejuice.
It's like Biggie Smalls or Beetlejuice. Yeah.
Biggie Smalls.
I don't know. I just throw that out there.
Whoa! That's a new hypothesis. I hadn't heard that before. So you're saying he's not dead? It's just that somebody summoned him. I have to go. Exactly. My planet needs me.
Let's see. Let me answer. Okay, it's J.R. Martis. Can they still hear us in YouTube?
Yeah, they can still hear us in YouTube.
So J.R. Martis, the way you check your citizen number is you go to the Robert Space Industries site, you click on My RSI, and then you click on your profile, and it shows your citizen number there.
Yeah, basically, if you mouse over My RSI, it'll have your handle and your name, and you just open that up.
There we go.
And your stuff will be the very top of the page.
Oh, there we go. UEE citizen record. Now, if only I could get some of the other citizens in front of me to quit and give me their numbers. That's what it's going to be. That's what it's going to be. From now on, in WoW, when people made a big fuss on the forums and said, this game is terrible, and I get new patch, blah, 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 and it quit. And then somebody said, can I have your stuff? And this one, can I have your citizen number?
I'm the same way on that one. I used to do the same things. And when I did quit, I gave my stuff away from some of the other games I was in. But yeah, now the part that kills me, I think I backed day 1 or day 2 of the Kickstart, but I spent like 6 weeks not making my account on Robert Space Industries. So I was like, damn it, there's extra steps? Fuck you people. It's okay. I
backed at the Kickstarter at the very end, I think. Like, I had it on my radar, but I just was so... And to be fair, they were confused about what they were trying to sell when the Kickstarter launched also. So I was like, I don't know what this is. Like, it looks really cool, but I don't know what it is, and I'm not going to back it until I know. Man, I have to say, you must put your headphones on and take them off in the same way each time to get it that twisted.
You know what? I can link you to the findings, but here we go. I will get it up as close as I can to the camera. What you've got in there is this really screwed up system down here causes this. You see this? Yes. Where it's got separate headphone and mic jacks?
Yeah.
So doing it that way, it leads to this. If I have just one cable, it never twists. But this will literally cause it to twist ridiculously. I can straighten it out, and this is the first time I noticed it when this happened. I untwisted it, heated it to get rid of the thing there, and I laid it out smooth, and I came back 2 days later, and it was twisting around again all on its own. It's a terrible system. I love the headset here.
This clearly has something to do with magnetism and coils. I'm just calling it.
Yeah.
Because when in doubt, superconductors must be involved. That and quantum mechanics.
Well, no, there was actually a study done at MIT, and they determined how it happened. Like how anything, if you take a pristine roll of Christmas lights, which have a great propensity to twist around and link together, and you put them in a box, and you come back, they will be twisted together.
They're alive!
So, how does this happen? It turns out that there is a lot of math that goes into that. But and I can recommend the SteelSeries headset to anyone, and I will need my $5 check, SteelSeries. But yeah, that's just how it goes. It gets massively twisted. I will untwist it. I really should switch out the headset because I don't really use the gaming mic anymore, as I've got the Yeti.
The Yeti.
The Yeti. which is doing a lot better now that it's mounted up as a boom mic.
One more time on that, Bridger. I need to be able to record this for a ringtone.
Space Yeti equals Chewbacca. Everybody knows this.
I'm terrible at Yeti. I always have a lisp.
I did like that guy that did the voice attack with the R2-D2 sounds.
Yeah.
Every time he said something, when he hit eject, you heard R2 go, wow! Somebody's going to do that with Chewbacca, and it's not going to be as interesting or fun.
I need to find a Leela from Futurama voice pack to do that with. You know, I just...
We're all going to die!
Target nearest enemy. Screw you.
Yeah! Whenever you fire missiles.
Yes, that would be awesome. Leela fire missile. Yes, that would be awesome. I would love that. That or a Bender one.
Somebody already... Yeah, Bender one would even be
Bite
better.
my shiny metal ass.
Yeah, whenever you ask for it to put full shields to the rear, that's what he says.
Yes.
What about Ewok sound effects? Nobody likes Ewoks. Get out of here. It's like asking for Jar Jar Binks sounds.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that. All right, I'm going to shut her down here.
All right.
I think we've gone on long enough in
Oh my God, Bridger. Jar Jar Binks soundboard to respond to pirates on voice comms. You want a surefire way to bait people in to kill you? That's it.
They'll shoot you anyway. That's if you want a honeypot.
It's perfect. This is how you bring people in. You just have Jar Jar Binks waiting.
Well, I think you drive away your viewership, but other than that, yeah.
Yes. Okay. I am shutting her down here. We'll see you guys in a couple of weeks. I'll try and keep you posted via... Well,
Okay.
I can keep you guys posted. I can't really keep the listeners posted without a computer set up. So, yeah, we'll do
They
something.
could come join the Tales of Citizens chat on Skype.
They could.
Oh. Kind of.
Let there be a
How would
massive
they do
influx
that?
to people.
Everybody
That's
has
a good
to
question.
get my special
They'd have to have a
number.
Skype account.
Yeah.
They'd have to send us messages to our feedback account.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
feedback at talesofcitizens.com. That's a good
So
way
if
to
you
do
have a
There you
Skype
go.
account and you want to join the madness that is the Tales of Citizens Skype chat,
Ah, Andreas, no, Gray, no.
All right. Anyway, see you later, guys. We're shutting her down.
See you later.